Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening from wherever you're watching or listening. My name is Caleb Blick. I'm a lawyer here in the great state of Texas with the Calhoun School of Law to bring you a lot of information plenty of bad folks would rather you not have. In today's lecture, we'll provide another installation into our series on Mr. Algernon Sidney's Discourses Concerning Government. We're going on to Chapter 1, Section 16. No, we didn't skip past Section 15. It was combined with Section 14. But if you haven't gone back and watched 1 through 14, I'd highly encourage you to do so because Algernon Sidney's works greatly influenced the founding generation's thinking. So if you really want to get a thorough understanding of not just what the U.S. Constitution, Articles of the Confederation, the other founding documents say, but the foundational principles and beliefs which formed those clauses and provisions, reading through Mr. Sidney's work is going to play greatly to your advantage in attaining that. So let's go ahead and jump on over to the Discourses Concerning Government. Like I said, we're going on to number 16. Now, this one is a very lengthy section, so I went ahead and highlighted the parts that I thought would be most to your benefit. As always, don't take my word for it. There is a free, available digital copy of Discourses Concerning Government available online. Please go and read through the entire section yourself. I like to keep these lectures about 10 to 15 minutes, so that way it's a quick digest. You get the important information and then enjoy the rest of your time. So section 16 is going to be titled, "The Ancients Chose Those to be Kings Who Excelled in the Virtues that Are Most Beneficial to Civil Societies." So in this section, we're going to see Algernon Sidney say, okay, I'll grant your argument, Mr. Filmer. I'll grant your argument in Patriarcha. Let's say there can be a singular unitary leader. If that is true, here are the required qualities of that leader. What he'll come to the conclusion to be in the end is that, okay, if that leader goes against those qualities, as shown throughout history, he is abhorred, to use his own word, and must be resisted, must be replaced. So he starts off, if the Israelites, whose lawgiver was God, and no king in the first institution of their government, is no wonder that other nations should not think themselves obliged to set up any. So the Israelites, whose lawgiver was directly God, if they didn't have a king, of course no other nation would think it proper to set up a king. But if they who came all of one flock and knew their genealogies when they did institute kings, had no regard to our author's chimerical rights of inheritance, nor were taught by God or his prophets to have any. It is not strange that nations who did not know their own original, and who probably, if not certainly, came of several stocks, never put themselves to the trouble of seeking one, who by his birth deserved to be preferred before others. And if the various changes happening in all kingdoms, whereby in process of time the crowns were transported into diverse families to which the right of inheritance could not without the utmost impiety and madness be imputed, such a fantasy certainly could only enter into the heads of fools, and we know of none so foolish to have harbored it. It's a very solid argument for debunking, I should say, not destroying, for debunking Robert Filmer's claim to inherited or hereditary paternal rule. Sidney's saying, so this group of people whose lawgiver was directly God, they didn't set up kings, and because of that, all of these other nations didn't set up kings, and because of that, they didn't keep a pure hereditary line of reign and control, of inherited reign and governing power. So to think otherwise, that we can just start instituting this idea based on this right of inheritance, is totally foolish. And we know of none so foolish to harbor it. The Grecians, amongst others who followed the light of reason, knew no other original title to the government of a nation than that wisdom, valor, and justice which was beneficial to the people. These qualities gave beginning to those governments which we call heroem regna. And he goes on to explain the example further. Again, I'm bypassing the historical examples, not to mischaracterize what Mr. Sidney's saying here, just because that's like a warrant. I encourage you all, go read the warrants, go read the evidence for it, We're just extracting the principles that we see to be self-evident. Those nations did not seek the most ancient, but the most worthy, not the one based on hereditary, not the one based on inheritance, not the one based on age, but the one most fit to provide for what? As you'll see Mr. Sidney come to the conclusion at the end of this section, for providing the public good. They could pay no veneration to any man under the name of a common father who thought they had none. Wow, I almost reread that line. Who thought they had none, and they were esteemed themselves equal, could have no reason to prefer anyone unless he were distinguished from others by the virtues that were beneficial to all. Again, goes on to give examples, Anctius Martius, Tilius Hostilius, so on, so forth. Please go read those examples. He says the Israelites, Spartans, Romans, and others who thus framed their governments according to their own will did it not by any peculiar privilege, but by a universal right conferred upon them by God and nature. They were made of no better clay than others. They had no right that does not as well belong to other nations. That is to say, the constitution of every government is referred to those who are concerned in it, and no other has anything to do with it. So no, there is not some infinite right guaranteed or inured to any one individual. It is specifically who is the best person to lead. And what is the required quality of leadership? Providing the best for all, providing the public good. But if governments arise from the consent of men and are instituted by men according to their own inclinations, they did therein seek their own good. For the will is ever drawn by some real good or the appearance of it. This is that which man seeks by all the regular or irregular motions of his mind. Reason and passion, virtue and vice do herein concur, though they differ vastly in the objects in which each of them thinks this good consist. So regardless if it's a, I guess vice would be the best word for it. Regardless if it's a vice, the primary motivator is to pursue what is real good. Now, of course, real good, as made evident by the virtue and vice comparison, may have a slightly different definition, a slightly different understanding, but they concur in saying they pursue the real good. That's what he's trying to argue here. So finding the true real good and facilitating the true real good is the purpose of a leader. He says, Marius, Sylla, Catiline, Julius, or Octavius Caesar, and all those who by force or fraud usurped a dominion over their brethren could have no title to this right. Much less could they become fathers of the people by using all the most wicked means that could well be imagined to destroy them, and not being regularly chosen for their virtues or the opinion of them, nor preferred on account of any prerogative that had been from the beginning annexed to their families, hereditary rule, they could have no other right than occupation could confer upon them. If this can confer a right, there is an end of all disputes concerning the laws of God or man. If Julius and Octavius Caesar did successively become lords and fathers of their country by slaughtering almost all the Senate, and such persons were eminent for nobility or virtue, together with the major part of the people, it cannot be denied that a thief who breaks into his neighbor's house and kills him is justly master of his estate and may exact the same obedience from his children that they render to their father. What an excellent metaphor. If one person, not based on merit, not based on virtue, not based on consent, goes and steals a government, whether that be from deception or just outright slaughter, then we can't say that a thief who comes into someone else's house and slaughters the house owner cannot then demand the same level of obedience from that person's children. If a dictator can come in and steal a government, and that supposedly grants him a right, then a thief can enter into a house, trespass into a house, kill the owner, and demand obedience from the owner's children. Brilliant metaphor. Goes on to give further examples. Later he says, if there be such a thing as right or wrong to be examined by men, and any rules set whereby the one may be distinguished from the other. These extravagancies can have no effect of right. Such as commit them are not to be looked upon as fathers, but as the most mortal enemies of their respective countries. No right is to be acknowledged in any but such as is conferred upon them by those who have the right of conferring, and are concerned in the exercise of the power upon such conditions as best please themselves. No obedience can be due to him or them who have not a right of commanding. This cannot reasonably be conferred upon any that are not esteemed willing and able rightly to execute it. So no, do not obey the thief. No, do not obey the tyrant. In like manner, he only can, according to the rules of nature, be advanced to the dignities of the world who excels in the virtues required for the performance of the duties annexed to them. For the performance of, almost reread the line. For he only can answer the end of his institution. The law of every instituted power is to accomplish the end of its institution, as creatures are to do the will of their Creator, and in deflecting from it, overthrow their own being. Magistrates are distinguished from other men by the power with which the law invests them for the public good. He that cannot or will not procure that good destroys his own being and becomes like to other men. In short, the purpose for government is to provide for the public good. And because the government provides for the public good, the public is required to obey. That's a sequential order. If any part of that sequence is disrupted, specifically that first part, the government serving the public good, then the remaining parts have no reason to obey the sequence. That's exactly what he's saying here. The whole reason for the government to exist is to provide for the public good. So by not providing for the public good, the government is contradicting its sole purpose for existence, and thus doesn't exist at all. That's the conclusion he draws here. I had to highlight this. I know it's one of the historical examples, but it makes just such a good argument. It's presented by Bartholomew de las Casas, Bishop of Chiapa, and he presents this argument to Emperor Charles V whenever he considers conducting a conquest against the Indies. Bartholomew says this, quote, Reason says he is that regard is to be had to the principal end and cause, for which a supreme or universal Lord is set over them, which is their good and profit, and not that it should turn to their destruction and ruin. For if that should be, there is no doubt from thenceforward that power would be tyrannical and unjust, as tending more to the interest and profit of that Lord than to the public good and profit of the subjects, which according to natural reason and the laws of God and man is abhorred and deserves to be abhorred. Now, Algernon Sidney, go ahead, make certain he's not trying to appeal to authority, that just because this bishop said it, that it makes it true. He's saying the reason he provided that example is to show a universality of agreement throughout mankind, that this principle is self-evident and true, and it's not just something he's conjuring up in his head. Further, he says, not Bartholomew, back to Algernon Sidney. Algernon Sidney says, but if that government be unreasonable and abhorred by the laws of God and man, which is not instituted for the good of those that live under it, and an empire grounded upon the donation of the Pope, which amongst those of the Roman religion is of great importance, and an entire conquest of the people with whom there had been no former compact, do degenerate into a most unjust and detestable tyranny, so soon as the Supreme Lord begins to prefer his own interest or profit before the good of his subjects. What shall we say of those who pretend to a right of dominion over free nations, as inseparably united to their persons, without distinction of age or sex, or the least consideration of their infirmities and vices, as if they were not placed in the throne for the good of their people, but to enjoy the honors and pleasures that attend the highest fortune? What name can be fit for those who have no other title to the places they possess than the most unjust and violent usurpation, or being descended from those who for their virtues were, by the people's consent, duly advanced to the exercise of a legitimate power, and having sworn to administer it according to the conditions upon which it was given for the good of those who gave it, turn all to their own pleasure and profit without any care of the public. There may be liable to hard censures. These may be liable to hard censures, but those who use them most gently must confess that such an extreme deviation from the end of their institution annuls it, and the wound thereby given to the natural and original rights of those nations cannot be cured unless they resume the liberties of which they have been deprived, and return to the ancient custom of choosing those to be magistrates who for their virtues best deserve to be preferred before their brethren, and are endowed with those qualities that best enable men to perform the great end of providing for what? The public safety. Excellent. So if you have any questions about what was said in chapter 1, section 16, questions about what was said in the preceding chapters, or maybe there's a legal topic you'd like me to cover in a future lecture, go ahead and post those down in the comments, because the entire purpose of the Calhoun School of Law is to equip you with the necessary skills and information, such as this, to combat any sort of lawfare that will be waged against you, your loved ones, or your hard-earned property. So please, if you have any questions at all, go ahead and post them down in the comments. Excellent. So my name is Caleb Glick. I'm a lawyer here in the great state of Texas with the Calhoun School of Law to bring you a lot of information that plenty of bad folks would rather you not have. I hope you enjoyed this lecture, and if not, while you're down in the comments, go ahead and let me know how I can do better so I can best serve that purpose of helping you. I hope you'll have a wonderful day, and until I see y'all in the next lecture for the next topic, I bid you all farewell.